Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're into spine-chilling stories and eerie experiences, you're in the right place. Tonight, we're diving into a story that starts off deceptively calm but quickly spirals into something truly unsettling. So, grab a blanket, turn down the lights, and let's get into it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling content. Lisa and I had been looking forward to our trip to Las Vegas for weeks. The bright lights, the endless parties, the thrill of letting loose for a weekend. We couldn't wait. We packed our bags with anticipation, joking about all the fun we'd have, the memories we'd make. The car was filled with laughter as we set off, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over the desert. But as we drove further into the night, the atmosphere began to change. The excitement of the trip was still there, but a strange tension started to creep in. It was subtle at first, a chill in the air, a sense of being watched, the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It started with the road. We'd been driving for hours, the desert stretching out endlessly on either side, when we noticed that the road ahead seemed to be narrowing, the asphalt darker, almost as if it had been burned. The lights from our car's headlights seemed to dim, struggling to cut through the thickening darkness. "I think we took a wrong turn," Lisa said, glancing nervously out the window. But when I checked the map, everything seemed fine. We were on the right road, heading straight for Vegas. There was no reason for the growing unease, no explanation for the heavy feeling in my chest. Then we saw it, a figure standing on the side of the road, barely visible in the dim light. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker, maybe someone who'd broken down in the middle of nowhere. But as we got closer, something about the figure felt off. It was too still, too silent, like it was waiting for us. Lisa tensed beside me. Maybe we should stop and help. But the thought of stopping sent a cold shiver down my spine. There was something wrong with that figure, something that made every instinct scream to keep driving. "We should keep going," I said, trying to sound calm. But as we passed by, the figure turned its head to follow us, its eyes glowing in the dark. They weren't the eyes of a person. They were something else, something inhuman. And as we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that those eyes were still on us. The radio crackled to life, blasting static at full volume, making both of us jump. I fumbled with the knobs, trying to shut it off, but the static only grew louder, filling the car with an unbearable noise. And then, amidst the static, I heard it. A voice, faint and distorted, whispering a single word: "Turn around." My heart stopped. I looked at Lisa, her eyes wide with fear. She'd heard it too. "Let's get out of here," she said, her voice barely more than a breath. I slammed the car into reverse, the tires screeching as we backed away from whatever was out there in the dark. But no matter how fast I drove, the footsteps kept pace, the sound echoing in my ears, relentless and unyielding. Finally, I spun the car around and floored the gas, speeding down the highway, desperate to put as much distance as possible between us and whatever was out there. But even as the road blurred beneath us, the radio remained alive with static, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. "We should stop," Lisa said suddenly, her voice taking on a strange, distant tone. "What?" I glanced at her, confused. "No way! We're getting out of here!" But Lisa's gaze had shifted to something in the rearview mirror, her expression blank, almost trance-like. I followed her gaze and my blood ran cold. There, sitting in the back seat, was a figure, a dark, shadowy shape that hadn't been there before. Its face was obscured, but I could feel its eyes on us, watching, waiting. Before I could react, the figure leaned forward, closer to Lisa. A cold, clammy hand rested on her shoulder, and she shuddered, her breath catching in her throat. "Stop the car," she repeated, her voice a hollow echo of itself. But I couldn't. My hands were frozen to the wheel, my body paralyzed with fear. The figure's presence filled the car, a suffocating weight pressing down on us, making it hard to breathe. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure vanished. The cold air lifted, and Lisa snapped out of her trance, gasping for breath. What was that?" she stammered, clutching my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "I don't know," I managed to choke out, my heart still racing. "But we need to keep moving." For the rest of the drive, we didn't speak. The radio had fallen silent, the static gone as if it had never existed. But the feeling of being watched lingered, an invisible presence that followed us all the way to Vegas. When we finally reached the city, its neon lights flashing in the distance, we both let out a sigh of relief. But deep down, I knew that whatever had happened on that dark, deserted road wasn't over. It had followed us, a shadow lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike again. And as we pulled into the parking lot of our hotel, I caught a glimpse of something in the rearview mirror. A fleeting shadow, just for a second, before it disappeared into the night. We had made it to Vegas, but whatever we had encountered on that road, it had come with us. We didn't talk much as we checked into the hotel. The excitement from earlier was gone, replaced by a gnawing unease that neither of us could shake. The lobby was bright, filled with the sounds of slot machines and the chatter of other guests, but it all felt distant, like we were moving through a dream. The clerk handed us our room key with a polite smile, completely unaware of the tension between us. As we rode the elevator up to our floor, the silence between Lisa and me was deafening. I could see the worry in her eyes, the questions she was too afraid to ask, the same ones that were clawing at the back of my mind. When we reached our room, the door creaked open to reveal a plush suite with a view of the glittering city below. Under any other circumstances, it would have been perfect, but tonight, it felt wrong, too quiet, too still. I dropped our bags by the door and turned to Lisa, trying to muster a reassuring smile. "We're here. We made it. Let's just relax and try to enjoy the weekend, okay?" She nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Yeah, you're right." But even as we tried to settle in, the tension didn't ease. The shadows in the room seemed to stretch further than they should have, creeping along the walls, inching closer every time we turned our backs. The air felt thick, like something was pressing down on us, making it hard to breathe. I tried to distract us with the TV, flipping through channels until I found a movie. We sat on the edge of the bed, watching the screen without really seeing it. My mind kept drifting back to the figure in the road, the whispers on the radio, and the cold hand on Lisa's shoulder. No matter how much I tried to push it away, the fear clung to me, tightening its grip. Then, just as the movie reached its climax, the screen flickered. For a split second, the picture distorted, the image replaced by static. And there, within the static, I saw it again, the same shadowy figure, just as before, lurking at the edge of the screen, watching us. I blinked, and it was gone, the movie resuming as if nothing had happened. But the unease had returned full force, a cold knot forming in my stomach. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Lisa nodded slowly, her face pale. It was the same from the car. Neither of us moved, our eyes locked on the TV as if expecting the figure to reappear. But the screen remained normal, the shadows still dancing in the corners of the room. "I think we should leave," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't argue. The thought of staying here, in this room, with whatever had followed us, was unbearable. We quickly packed our things, our movements frantic and desperate, as if we were trying to outrun the fear that clung to us. But as I reached for the door, something stopped me. The air in the room grew colder, the lights dimming until the only illumination came from the faint glow of the TV. And then, from the darkness, I heard it again, the soft, shuffling footsteps coming from just outside the door. Lisa grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with terror. "It's here." I pressed my ear to the door, listening. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, pacing back and forth in the hallway. They paused right outside our door, the silence stretching on for what felt like an eternity. And then, a single knock, soft, almost polite, echoed through the room. We both froze, too terrified to move. The knock came again, this time louder, more insistent. My heart pounded in my chest, every instinct telling me not to open the door, to stay as far away as possible. But before I could react, the door handle started to turn, the slow, deliberate movement sending a wave of dread through me. I grabbed Lisa's hand, pulling her away from the door, backing up until we were pressed against the far wall. The door creaked open, just a crack, and through the small gap, I saw it, a shadow, shifting and moving in the darkness, too vague to make out any features, but unmistakably there. And then, from the other side of the door, a voice, low, gravelly, and filled with malice. "Let me in." The voice slithered through the darkness, its words hanging in the air like a poisonous fog. I could feel the weight of them pressing down on my chest, suffocating me. Lisa's grip on my arm tightened, her nails digging into my skin, but I barely noticed. My entire focus was on that door, the thin barrier between us and whatever was out there. The knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by a silence so profound it felt like the world had come to a standstill. We held our breath, listening, waiting for something, anything, but the silence stretched on, endless and suffocating. "Maybe it's gone," Lisa whispered, though her voice was thick with fear. But deep down, we both knew that wasn't true. Whatever had followed us, whatever had been trying to get in, was still there, just waiting, biding its time. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The screen lit up, casting an eerie glow across the room. I quickly dialed the front desk, desperate for some kind of help, some assurance that this nightmare wasn't real. But the line was dead. No dial tone, no ringing, just silence. "Damn it," I cursed under my breath, the reality of our situation sinking in. We were completely alone. Lisa's voice trembled as she asked, "Should we try to make a run for it?" I considered it, my mind racing through the possibilities. The thought of stepping into that hallway, where those footsteps had been, sent a wave of dread through me. But staying in this room, where the walls seemed to close in on us more with each passing second, was no better. "Okay," I finally said, trying to steady my voice. "We'll go together, and we'll run as fast as we can. Don't look back, no matter what." She nodded, her face pale, but determined. We edged toward the door, every nerve in my body screaming that this was a bad idea. My hand hovered over the lock, my heart hammering in my chest. And then, before I could change my mind, I unlocked the door and yanked it open. The hallway stretched out before us, bathed in the sickly yellow light of flickering bulbs. It was empty, no sign of the figure, no sign of anything. Just a long, endless corridor, lined with doors that all looked the same. But the air was thick with a sense of wrongness, a feeling that we were being watched. We bolted, sprinting down the hallway, our footsteps echoing off the walls. I could hear Lisa's breath coming in sharp gasps beside me, feel the cold sweat on my skin. But I didn't dare slow down. As we neared the elevator, something caught my eye. A shadow moving in the corner of my vision. I forced myself not to look, remembering my own warning, but the temptation was almost unbearable. And then Lisa screamed. I turned, just for a second, and saw it, the figure from the road, from the car, from the TV, standing at the end of the hallway, its eyes glowing in the dim light. It was closer now, close enough that I could make out the details. The tattered, dark clothing, the pale, almost translucent skin, and those eyes burning with a cold, malevolent light. "Go!" I shouted, grabbing Lisa's arm and dragging her toward the elevator. We reached it just as the doors opened, and we stumbled inside, frantically pressing the button for the lobby. The doors slid shut, but not before I saw the figure take a step toward us, closing the distance. The elevator lurched downward, the ride agonizingly slow. Lisa was crying now, her body trembling uncontrollably. I wrapped my arms around her, trying to offer some comfort, but I couldn't stop shaking either. The walls of the elevator seemed to press in on us, the space shrinking, the air growing colder with each passing second. Then, the lights in the elevator flickered and went out, plunging us into complete darkness. We were trapped, suspended in the cold, inky blackness, with nothing but the sound of our own breathing and the faint hum of the elevator. And then, from the corner of the elevator, came that same whisper, closer than ever, the voice dripping with malice. "You can't escape." I fumbled for my phone again, desperate for any source of light, and managed to turn on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, but instead of offering comfort, it revealed something far worse. There, in the far corner of the elevator, was the figure, no longer just a shadow, but a fully formed, terrifying presence. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, its face twisted into a grotesque mockery of a smile. It took a step toward us, and the elevator shuddered violently, the floor beneath us groaning as if about to give way. Lisa screamed again, and this time, I joined her, the sound of our terror filling the tiny, enclosed space. The figure reached out a hand, its fingers long and thin, like twisted branches, reaching for us, ready to drag us into whatever hell it came from. And then, just as its hand was about to touch us, the elevator doors opened, and we were suddenly blinded by bright lights and the sound of music and voices. We stumbled out into the lobby, gasping for air, our hearts racing. The hotel staff and guests turned to stare at us, their faces a mix of confusion and concern. But when I turned back to look inside the elevator, it was empty. No figure, no shadows, just an ordinary elevator, as if nothing had happened. But we knew better. We could feel it, whatever had haunted us on that road, in that room, in that elevator, it wasn't gone. It was still with us, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike again. We left the hotel that night, never looking back, driving straight through the desert until the first light of dawn. But no matter how far we went, how much distance we put between us and that place, the memory of those eyes, that voice, stayed with us. And every now and then, in the dead of night, when the world is quiet and the shadows are long, I swear I can still hear those footsteps, slowly coming closer. Thanks for joining me on this creepy journey. I hope you enjoyed the chills as much as I did. If you're hungry for more spooky tales, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and helps keep the horror coming. Until next time, stay safe and keep the lights on.